Okay, staff, if you'd like to let folks in. And Ed, once the folks are in, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Okay, let's go. Okay, I guess everybody's in their specific places or rooms, or whatever they're called in Zoom. Anyways, welcome. Thanks for attending. My name is Ed Abbott. I'm the chairman of the Elections Committee. So we can go to the next slide. We'll start with introductions. With us tonight are one of the election committee board members, committee members, John Norton. There's also Brittany Copeland, the board liaison, Kara McDonald, the director of communications, Sean Barami, who is the media guru or manager for Reston. And so I would ask that since there's not too many people on this call, if they could speak up and introduce themselves and perhaps tell them why they want to run for the board.
If you could raise your hand to unmute, we'll go ahead and unmute you one by one.
Well,
Don't all raise your hands at once.
all right, well, it's not required. So let's go ahead and move on. The agenda items are listed on this slide. I am not going to read the bullets. I'll try to summarize things, but leave it up there long enough for people to read it. Let's go to the next slide. Basically, these are what we've tried to do in these slides is to give you an overview of Reston and as governing documents and the what the board members do, and kind of give you a broader view of what you're going to get involved with if you decide to run. This slide describes basically the boundaries within which the Reston Association, more importantly, the board can operate. There's only a certain amount of things that you can do, and those are established by a couple of legal instruments. But the main focus of the operation of the board is with the board resolutions, rules, and regulations, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. So this is something you need to be familiar with if you're going to run for the board, so you understand what the limits of your authority is. That's enough time on that. Okay, next slide. So given all of that, and what is RA? What does it do? We've discussed the legal and operational rules under which it governs, but what does it actually manage or administer? And this is an overview of the association. It includes the facilities that RA manages, and it's pretty extensive, as you can see from the slide. Plus, there's a fairly substantial staff. Probably one of the things that you may want to realize is that the budget is right around 19 million a year, and most of that comes out from the annual assessment. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so given the legal and administrative rules that govern the association, and we know what it does, what's the purpose of the board of directors? And that's basically to oversee. Well, it's required by the legal requirements, but its main function is to oversee the operation of the association. The board consists of 9 directors. The one that I think is probably what most people don't really understand is is one of the directors is elected by the apartment owners. And this is kind of unusual in the sense of some associations, at least from my understanding. And that director is elected by the owners of the lots of the apartments, and the number of votes is equal to the number of apartment units that the owner has. The directors for the 4 voting districts are elected by they have to be members of that district, and the members, I mean, see, the person has to be from that district, and the other 4 directors can be from any district. Any questions on that? I guess we'll move on. This election, there are 4 open seats, 2 at-large directors for a 3-year term, and then the South Lakes director for a 3-year term, and the apartment owners representative. So that's pretty simple. Last election, we had, I think, 5 openings. Moving on to the next slide. This is kind of important. As I said earlier, there's the election committee has a set of resolutions which govern how the campaign is conducted. I want to point out a couple things. First is that there's no negative campaigning, and there's a definition for that in the resolution. You probably ought to read it at some point if you're going to run. We've had cases in the past where there has been negative campaigning, and it creates a good deal of angst and friction and otherwise bad feelings. So I think if you look at the definition, I think it's pretty clear, but even if you don't, I think most people understand what that means. You can't use any of the RA trademark or mission statements or any of the artwork or videos that Reston has produced in your advertising for your campaign. So that's important. If you have any questions on either what negative campaigning is or any of the other issues on this slide, please don't hesitate to call. You can either call me or Brittany, and we can provide you with guidance on that if you'd like. You probably get more information out of Brittany than you will me, but anyways. The second thing I want to point out is there are activities that you will have to take, that you'll have to do or perform once you're certified, and those are listed under the 4th bullet, once certified RA, take a professional photo, etc. Keep in mind that it's a fairly tight schedule. The staff will do everything in its power to accommodate your schedule, but if you make an appointment and it's been confirmed, please keep it. And then lastly, you'll be required to affirm compliance with Resolution 3, which is the stuff that's listed above. Next slide. Okay, this attempts to describe the board's authority and responsibility, and it's kind of complicated. But basically, the board's responsible for making sure that the rules and regulations are followed, and is responsive to the membership. It's kind of a broad mandate, but nonetheless, that's basically what you're supposed to do as a board member. Now, how do you? Are there specific duties and responsibilities? Yes, and that's on the next slide. And I think it's pretty easy to understand. It's not rocket science by any means, but it can be. Some of these issues tend to be kind of difficult to handle. For example, when you hire a CEO, that's pretty important. or when you're setting the budgets. There's a lot of feedback from members when that happens, especially when the assessment goes up. And probably one of the more important things you'll end up doing if you do become a successful candidate is to evaluate the CEO. Then there are individual board responsibilities. That's the next slide. And I think that's I think the one the one thing that you have to be aware of is that you really to be an effective member, you have to attend all the meetings and be prepared to participate in the meeting when it happens. Second thing, which probably takes some time, is the service committee member, or as a liaison and a chair, and we'll get to that in a minute here. And the rest of it, I think, is pretty clear. Next slide. This is a little overwhelming in a sense, but this is all the committees that the board is responsible for. And so if you end up being a board member, one of those committees will be assigned to you. I won't read what's on the slide, but there is, at the end of this presentation, there are links provided that will guide you to where you can find more information about these committees. Next slide. Meeting time and commitment. Oops, you skipped. This is only an estimate. I mean, the board members don't have punch cards and they don't track their time, but this is basically what we've discovered from different members of the board that have provided information on how long it takes to prepare for meetings. It's to give you an idea of just what the time commitment is going to be, and understand that there is an obligation here, and it's not minimal by any means. In order to get probably a better view of what is involved, is to take a look at YouTube and the live stream. I mean, the recorded meeting minutes, the recorded meetings on YouTube. It'll give you some idea what's involved. I strongly recommend that. Okay, important dates. I'm not going to read this. I think it's fairly straightforward. And next slide. You can see the schedule is pretty tight. Okay, I think this is the last slide. Next to last slide. No. The one, if you decide to run, there's certain things you have to do, and we have to validate your candidacy. And these are the bullets that the election committee complies with in order to determine whether a member who's filled out the candidate form is permitted to actually run. So I think I think it's fairly straightforward. But one word of advice is on the second bullet. You have to get 25 signatures for people or members who are eligible to vote for the seat. I would strongly recommend you get at least 50 or even 75, just to make sure that you meet the requirement if some of the signatures get kicked out. And then the last slide is where you can find information that I basically skimmed over. And if you've got any questions at this point, I think that's the last slide. So any questions?
We have one question from Donna Kramer in the chat, and her question is, are there any conflicts if you're currently on an association board? And to
I
that,
don't know, you'd have to, Brittany, help.
to that I will answer. Realistically, the only conflict that you may face is, say you get elected and to the board of RA, and you are also on the board of your cluster. The governing documents that govern RA as a whole would come into play. There may be times where it may be conflicting with something within your cluster's documents. And so those, you'll have to kind of weigh what your allegiance is to as far as those documents are concerned. And the clear-cut answer should be to the overarching documents, which are the Reston Association documents. And those documents should fall in line with those overarching documents. So it's a bit of a tricky question. I think some people have had some issue with, well, our documents say this, but RA's documents say this. And I do believe the correct answer to that is you'll want to definitely check in with our attorney to make sure that you're following the documents the way that you're supposed to, and that you're staying in line with those. But they shouldn't cause any overarching conflict overall.
Yeah, and our legal counsel is Anthony Champ. And I think his phone number is on the website, I think. Or you can send him an email.
Or you can always reach out to us and we'll get you in contact with them.
Okay, that's fine too.
Does
If you
anyone
have
else
a
have any
question, please raise your hand to ask to be unmuted. So just do the little hand raise function and we will call on you.
Erwin wants to know if you can comment further on the issue of conflict.
Well, I certainly can't help him, keep him from doing that.
All right, I'm gonna unmute you here. You should now be unmuted.
Can you let me show my face as well?
Sure.
Yep.
What?
It's
Give me 1 second here.
Yep.
Okay, you should be able to show your video now. There you go.
ta-da. Okay. Greetings all. On the issue of conflict, if you understand that there is a conflict, you should disclose it. And it may be that you may be able to vote, even though on the issue, if you have disclosed the conflict, but your vote may not count. It depends on what is going on. So the most important thing is to disclose the conflict. And certainly in the disclosures of potential conflicts, when you do fill out your forms, you would disclose that you are a member of the board of your own HOA, because that would represent a possibility of conflict in the future, even though not generally.
Yes, and we do have some board members who serve on their cluster board, so it's not an unheard of thing either.
Well,
Did
okay.
anybody else? I don't think anyone else has any additional questions.
I hear none, so I guess we're done.
So we'll be sharing this presentation after the meeting. So if you'd like, you can reach out to me in the chat. Just send us your email and we'll get that information over to you. Just to let you know that our the deadline for candidate submissions candidacy submissions is January 26th at 5 p.m. Anything submitted past 5 p.m., we're just not accepting. So just make sure that if you have intentions to run in this election, that you submit your statements of candidacy and your petitions no later than Friday, January 26th by 5 p.m. I'll be in the office all day, so feel free to stop by member services and have them give me a ring, and I'll be down to assist you with any questions you may have. I want to thank our Elections Committee Chair, Ed Abbott, and John Norton for being on the meeting this evening and doing a wonderful job of hosting this evening. We'll be sharing this information, like I said, so just reach out to us if you have any additional questions.
Okay, I guess we're done.
Nicely done.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. As Brittany said, we will have this up on our website and can send out any additional information if you have questions.